Hi, my name is Amy and this is my first YouTube tutorial video, so bear with me while I try to figure this out. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cool crayon jacket. It's basically just a little carry along. You can put 8 crayons and a notebook in it. Here's one. This is an example of what we're going to make today. And then there's this one, which I added a monogram B to the front of it, but this is what it does. So you've got your notebook and then 8 crayons ready to go, all in their own individual pocket. So let's get started. To begin, what you're going to need is basic sewing supplies like a sewing machine, an iron and ironing board, some straight pins, a ruler, a marking pen, some scissors, and I use a paintbrush handle, but you can use a blunt pencil or something like that for turning corners. And then you'll need to go ahead and draft yourself a pattern. So you'll need a pattern, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. You'll also need a 1/4 of a yard of a cute printed fabric, or you could use a solid fabric if you'd like. And you'll need a 1/4 of a yard of fusible interfacing. You'll also need 2 6 to 8 inch lengths of ribbon and a 5-inch length of elastic and a scrap of fabric that measures about 9 1/4 inches by 3 1/2 inches to make your crayon pocket. Okay. To get started, we'll go ahead and start with a pattern. I suggest going ahead and drafting a pattern because you're going to want to make this again and again. It's a really fun project to make, and they make great last-minute gifts. People just love to receive these. First, you'll start by cutting a 9 1/4 by 12-inch rectangle. I always fold it in half to find the center and then fold it again, so you're basically folding it into fourths to keep you from having to do too much measuring. Your center line around on your short end is going to be your ribbon placement, and then about 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the top of one of your sides you're going to want to draw a line for your elastic placement, and then a faint line here for your pocket placement. As for the pocket, you're going to want to go ahead and create a 3 1/2 by 9 1/4 inch rectangle and then measure it as follows. From left to right, you're going to do a 5/8 inch seam allowance and then 7 1-inch increments for your pockets, and then another 5/8 inch seam allowance. And that's that. Set it aside, and I've already cut my fabric for ease in this tutorial, but what you'll want to do is go ahead and cut out 2 of the rectangles using your large rectangle pattern, 2 of those from your fabric and 1 of them from the interfacing. And then what you'll want to do is go ahead and cut out your scrap of paper or scrap of fabric using your pocket as your pocket pattern. And then you'll want to go ahead and fuse your interfacing down just like that, following the manufacturer's instructions. And then what you're going to want to do is place your pocket. I've already done it for just time restraints in this tutorial, but as you can see, I have placed my pocket at the end according to my pattern. And then I stitched it down on the lines that I created using my pattern for my pocket. I used a zigzag stitch, if you can see that, but you can also use a straight stitch just as well, or any decorative stitch you want. You just want it to be pretty slight because you're going to want to have plenty of room to fit your crayons down in there. I'm going to set my pattern aside for a moment. And then, oh, I need it still. And then what you're going to want to do is go ahead and place your pattern down so that you can figure out your placement for your ribbon and your elastic. You're going to need a few straight pins, and we'll go ahead and do that. So here's where the ribbon will go. Just going to pin it in place so it doesn't move. And then shift your pattern over and then place it so that you can find the placement for your other ribbon. And just lay it right across there. Pin it in place. And then, oops, pinned my pattern. And then you'll want to place your elastic according to your pattern. Very easy. Just like that. And try not to stick yourself. And then go ahead and pin your elastic here without being careful not to stretch it. You don't want to create any gathers. And then just pin it like so. And there you go. You've got all of your ribbons and your elastic placed. Now what you'll want to do is go ahead and create a sandwich. And just by laying that all right sides together, making sure that you've got it pretty much, I might turn it the other way. You don't want your ribbons to be in the ease of the fabric. And there you go. I think that works out better. And then you're going to want to pin it down just to make sure that it doesn't shift while you're sewing. Just a few pins will do just fine. And then what you'll want to do is it's pretty much like creating a pillow, if you've ever made a throw pillow. So you're going to want to sew around all 4 of these edges, and then you leave a gap about 3 to 4 inches on the bottom towards the center, because that's where you're going to turn your fabric or your project out the right side. So what you'll do is, using a 5/8 inch straight seam, you're going to sew around those edges, leaving that opening where I suggested. So I'll start now, and you're going to want to go ahead and give a generous back stitch, just to make sure that when you're turning your project right sides out, you don't rip your stitches open there. So generous little back stitch, and then you're going to want to keep your needle in the down position. Turn it. Oh no, my ribbon came with my pen. Let me go ahead and just shift that back over. And there we go. Alrighty then. I'll go ahead and resume sewing. To do, we're almost done, is clip your threads. I'm going to move my pins so that I don't misplace them and end up with them in my foot, and then remove my pins from my project. And then a nice thing to do is to go ahead and clip your corners, being careful not to get too close to your stitches, and that'll give you a nice crisp look when you turn your project out. And now all you have to do is go ahead and turn it out. Basically, I like to try and grab a corner and pull that corner through, and then work towards another corner and pull that corner through. and so on until you have all 4 corners pulled out nice and neat. This is where your turning tool comes in handy, and like I said, I use a paintbrush handle, but you could use a blunt pencil or a turning tool. I think they actually sell things to do that. So pull it out nice, and then use your tool, whichever you chose to use, and then just push those corners out gently so that you get a nice crisp corner. You would do that with a pillow. Same thing with this project. Let me work that corner out. See? Just using your turning tool. And then the same thing here. You want to give it a gentle push. You don't want to push too hard because you can push that that point right through your corner, and then you have a dilemma because you're going to have a hole that you will have to try to tuck in and sew away. And it's not the end of the world. It totally is fixable, but just don't want to add yourself any trouble. Now all you have to do is you're going to top stitch around the entire project, which will close your opening that you've left here, and then you will want to tack down your elastic and you'll be done. So I'm going to go ahead and press it because I like for it to be crisp and neat, and it also just helps me to keep it all put together properly. So I'm going to use a little bit of steam. There we go. Just to help it along. So neat. Pulling on your ribbons will keep it turned out properly. And then I go ahead and I press both sides just so that they lay nice and even on both sides. Don't want either side to get jealous, right? My kids love these. We take them everywhere we go, as well as all the other neighborhood kids, because inevitably somebody says, "Hey, where'd you get that?" I'm like, "I made it." And then they say, "Oh, well, could you make me one?" Absolutely. Okay. So now that we're ready, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the top stitch. Again, I'm going to use a zigzag stitch because I think it's fun and whimsical. And I'm going to start where my closure was just to make sure that I don't forget about it and maybe not capture that entire edge. When you're top stitching, you want to try to stay as close to the edge of your fabric as you can. So I'm just going to use my presser foot as a guide, and I've got a pretty wide stitch set here. You're going to make sure you keep your ribbons outside so that you don't stitch them to the inside. They wouldn't be much help then. And there we are. Done with our top stitching. Now you just want to clip your threads. And finally, you're going to want to go ahead and tack down that elastic. You can either do that by hand or with your machine, and since I have my machine out, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of it. And I'm just going to use a slider zigzag stitch and just try to encapsulate the edge of that elastic. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. Remove my pen. And that's it. Now all you have to do is clip your threads again. Make sure you get them all because you don't want a stray thread on your project, and especially if you're giving it away for a gift. All you have to do now is take a couple of crayons and a notebook and load up your crayon jacket, and it's ready to go. Put your piece of paper in here. Slide it down. Thank you for watching. And feel free to check me out at my Etsy shop. It's Amy Bug's Original Style at Etsy.com. And I hope maybe you'll find something there that you like. Feel free to ask me any questions. Thanks again.